good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Renegade Roundtable Podcast. I am Jeffrey Kirby, and as you can tell, for the first time in a little bit, I am by myself. I am running solo tonight, which is all good. Caleb is out on assignment right now, aka work, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, we do have some stuff we need to get into, obviously, with the Steelers OTAs. There's been some stuff going on. There's a lot of interesting things that have gone on and questions that have asked that need answered that we don't have the answers for right now, but we're going to discuss them anyway. A new GM is now in for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're obviously going to talk about that. Obviously, I do want to start off, again, another mass shooting that we had this week. Things are just getting crazy out there. I just ask everyone out there, please stay safe. And that's all I can really ask. Just please stay safe and hope that one day things can get better here with the world. But let's get on to things. Let's talk about some OTAs. Let's talk some Steelers here. So obviously, we'll start off with Mr. Omar Khan. He is now the new general manager for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it seems like the majority of people like this pick. Unless you're someone who's not found a Mike Tomlin. And you ask yourself, well, why does Mike Tomlin get brought into this? Mike Tomlin gets brought into this because there are some people who truly believe that this now could this possibly give Mike Tomlin even more power than what he already has in terms of just how much is he in on decision making and how much more of is he going to have in terms of that. I guess my thing would be listen, Omar Khan has been with the Steelers since 2001, if I'm not mistaken. He's been here for a long ass time. He's been basically the right-hand man with Kevin Colbert. Kevin Colbert, what we know what he's done over the last 20 years has been nothing short of phenomenal. We've been to 3 Super Bowls, been to 2, or we won 2. And we've been the most consistent franchise, and we have not had a losing season since 2003. That is all well noted and documented. Great. But I think part of the thing as well with all this as well, when we talk about Omar Khan, is just the stuff that he's dealt with itself already in the Steelers, because his main role, it was a lot with the contracts. Great. Look at some of the stuff that he's dealt with over the last few years in terms of just contracts itself. Having to deal with Ben. Having to deal with the Le'Veon Bell situation, with that contract situation. Having to deal with Antonio Brown and all that, getting him re-signed and having to deal with all that extra stuff. Having to deal with Bud Dupree and having, giving him the franchise tag and then letting him go. There's just more and more. Obviously, we just had to deal with TJ Watt's contract last year. Now we're having to talk about as well with Minka Fitzpatrick. He has that experience in terms of because he is, the capologist, which I know a lot of people get sick and tired of hearing of. But that's something that I think is going to be very beneficial. And let's be honest. Us as fans, we're going to, for the most part, agree with everything, and we're going to say it's a great pick. We all do this. Most of us, and I say majority of us, because there are some people who's really wanted other people. Like, I know a couple people really wanted Brandon Hunt over Omar Khan. But at the end of the day, for me, I was going to be okay, and I'm going to be one of those people. I was going to be okay with whoever they were going to choose, because at the end of the day, I have trust in this organization. I have trust in that. Yes, I understand that the playoff, in terms of the playoffs, we have not won a playoff game since 2016. I get that. It's well documented again. But again, look at the long-term longevity of things. Over the last 18, 19 years, you have to be a very stable organization, and the people inside of it really have to trust. And that's why I think at the end of the day, myself with some other, whoever else fans, we're going to be okay with whoever they chose, because they can feel comfortable in saying, hey, look at the success that we've had. Let's give this guy a shot. Let's see what happens. And on top of that, it gives you a little bit of a better feeling knowing that he's been in the organization for 21 years. If I'm not, I believe it's 21, or he's been here since 2001. Yeah. So he's been with the organization for a long time. He knows how things are ran. He was with Bill Cowher. He's been through here the whole time with Mike Tomlin. So he has that repertoire with Mike Tomlin. So at the end of the day, I would feel comfortable with knowing that we just hired someone who is going to be here and has understood everything that's going on. Again, at the end of the day, I like this pickup. This seems fine. I think this is going to... A lot of people have said this is going to be a seamless transition. That is absolutely great. But I guess now the question is, at the end of the day, is now, who has... obviously, we know... Really, at the end of the day, Art Rooney's going to have the final say. We get that. We understand that. But when you look at things... Obviously, yes, they're going to call Omar Khan when there's a trade that's going to happen. Hopefully, someone's calling them saying we want... Or, picking up the phone to call Mace Rudolph about Mace Rudolph. Obviously, we all know that's not going to happen. But, we could all hope and dream at this point. Which we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But you ask yourself then, okay, who is going to, how much power does each person have? Because we all knew Colbert and Mike Tomlin were, they were close. They were like this. Now, how is that going to end up being with Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin? That's something that we have yet to know. But again, it gives you a little bit of a sense of relief knowing that Omar Khan has been in the organization for a long time, for, again, 21 years. Some people have not even been alive for 21 years. So it gives you some comfort in that as well. And if you guys have any comments you want to make about it, let me know in the comments. I'm keeping track of the comments. Do you like this pickup, or do you like this signing? Do you wish they would have went with someone else? And if so, who? Who would you have been interested in the Steelers getting? Because we all knew a lot of people were wanting Louis Riddick. And we all saw that he signed the extension to ESPN. Then we all knew that wasn't going to happen. But at the end of the day, how much of that did we really know? Did we really, truly believe he was going to be here? Like, how much of a percent did we all believe? Don't get me wrong, I thought he would have been a great GM for us. But at the end of the day, you just never know. And again, congratulations to Louis Riddick. I'm glad for him. And again, he seems like a very genuine dude, so I'm very happy about that for him. And I'm good with that. But again, yeah, I feel okay with Omar Khan being the GM for the Steelers. And again, let me know down in the comments, how do you feel? Do you like the pickup? Do you not like the pickup? So yeah, just let me know here. I do want to get into some other things in terms of OTAs, because there was some interesting stuff that has been brought up. People who have not been there. We're going to get into that, what that may mean. Some moving around of pieces. And we'll just get into the quarterback. We'll start with the offense. We'll start off with the quarterback situation in terms of Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Kenny Pickett. So and obviously things are not set in stone right now. But the way it seems, and from what we've been hearing from those who have been at OTAs, it almost seems like right now it's Mitch Trubisky 1, Mason Rudolph 2, Kenny Pickett 3. I'm not mad at that. And again, we're only in OTAs. But if you look at it from this moment on May 26th, 2022, that's fine. That's completely fine. Allow Kenny Pickett, because again, look at it. Mason Rudolph, as much as we like to talk shit about him, and as much as I just mentioned 5 minutes ago how I wanted him out, at the end of the day, he still has the most experience, not only with the team, but in this offense as well. Mitch Trubisky, as of this moment, it would be logical that he would start off as QB1. And then you have Kenny Pickett. He's going to have to work his way up. That's just how the cookie crumbles. And that's fine. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what Kenny Pickett's going to be like. Now, what's nice with Kenny Pickett is that, the fact that they know Kenny Pickett very well, obviously being in the backyard of the Steelers facility pretty much. We know at the fact that they ran a pro-style offense. So him and Pat Narduzzi did a phenomenal job with him. And on top of that, he has experience against good opponents in the ACC. So at the end of the day, you feel confident about that. But we all know the NFL is a whole different beast. It's a whole new animal. And what I think is going to be great for Kenny Pickett is the fact that you run a kind of complicated defense. So this is really going to help Kenny Pickett right away. You're going up against TJ Watt on one side, Alex Highsmith on the other. You're going to have two stud middle, couple linebackers. You have Minka Fitzpatrick playing safety. So you're going up against that every day. That's going to be great for Kenny Pickett in terms of just being able to learn the NFL, learning how things go, learning how the play style is, and just learning the game speed of the NFL. So that's great for Kenny Pickett. And again, I have no issues with him not going, being at number 3 and working out. Mason Rudolph. Obviously, things have not been well for Mason. And on one hand, you can say, okay, how much of a fair shot did he really have? Because if you look at it, obviously 2018 he didn't do any playing time, or didn't do any playing, but Ben Roethlisberger he had 5,000 yards that year. We knew we were slowly starting to get to that time of maybe having to look for a new quarterback, but you weren't there yet, and you were hoping that Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round could do, maybe learn down the line and become that guy. Obviously, we all know 2019, he gets to play. That Seattle game, he looked pretty good. And we're like, okay, we might be onto something here. Here we go. Because once Ben went down, we didn't know what that was going to mean. So you're like, okay, we might be all right here. And we all saw how things go. We all know that he is a statue of a quarterback. He does have a nice deep ball. We could say that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like he was going to. I just don't know how much of a fair shot he had on top of that, because then you have to deal with the relationship of him and Ben Roethlisberger, which I don't think that was the greatest at all. Because if you're Ben Roethlisberger, like, hey, you're trying to steal my job. Why in the hell would I try to help you? Regardless of how you feel about that, that's just, again, how things work. Then when it comes to, again, with Mason, I just don't think he fits the kind of system that Matt Canada is wanting to run. Because, again, we just talked about the mobility, or lack thereof. He doesn't have that much mobility. So, and in this offense, you're going to need a little bit of that. And that's what you could get out of Mitch Trubisky and a Kenny Pickett. And we saw last year what happened. Now, again, we all know Ben Roethlisberger. We all know how he is in terms of, letting him run the show. And that just wasn't going to work out as much in this offense with Matt Canada. And that's the thing, too. When we look at Matt Canada, myself included throughout the year here on the Renegade Roundtable podcast, we've talked about, I've shat on him on multiple occasions. And I remember even early on saying, I want to see how this is going to work. How was Ben Roethlisberger and Matt Canada going to work together? But obviously we saw that wasn't a good mesh. However, I do believe in second chances. And now that second chance, now you have a quarterback, whoever it's going to be, they're all young. So yet you're going with a young quarterback. 2 of the 3 have some sort of mobility. No, they're not Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or anyone like that, but they do have some mobility in them. And that's good to have, especially as we saw with Ben Roethlisberger. He could barely move around. And now, on top of that, that helps out the offensive line as well, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But I think we have to give Matt Canada a second chance. Now, if you go into this season as well, things don't work out as well, maybe you could start to question things. And even then, you could say, okay, well, you go into you have a rookie quarterback, or, a guy that really has not been the greatest. If I'm not mistaken, he's 27 and 21 in the NFL. So, he's over 500 in Mitch Trubisky. But, I mean, even then, I feel like you might start giving cause to pause there in terms of that. And then you look at the running backs, or let's go to Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky, again, he seems like he's going to be QB1, but I think we're all assuming that it's going to be until whenever it becomes time that Kenny Pickett becomes, leaps over him. And we'll see what happens with this. Because, and going back to Mason Rudolph for a second, I just had a thought. I think it's the best case scenario right now to probably have him maybe as QB2, because I don't think you can allow him to be QB3. That'd be a huge smack in the face at him, and I don't think that's right. So I think, but I also don't think well, I guess if you say Mason would be QB1 right now on, again, May 26th, I don't think I'd be too mad. I think after, if you really think about it, yeah, we would have initial reaction. Oh, what the hell is going on here? Hell no. But when you think about it, he has the most experience in this offense. So that's not bad. But at the end of the day, we're all expecting to be either Mace or Mitch or Kenny Pickett. So we're going to see what happens with that. And just a matter of who the hell is going to win it. Because right now, no one's going to win jobs at OTAs in shorts and a helmet. We all know that's not going to happen. So we'll see what happens once we get into camp and once we get into the preseason. Then we'll go from there. Moving on to the running back position, obviously Najee Harris, he's looking like an absolute dog. He looks like he's gotten a little bit bigger. And with an improved offensive line, with a year under his belt, I think he's going to be a stud. He's going to be a dog. He had over 1,000 yards last year. I don't want to say he's going to go for 1,500. I don't think that's going to happen just yet. But I can see him going for maybe 1,100, close to 1,200 yards. And then on top of that, the passing game, or, him in the passing attack, that's something that's great for, that'll help out whoever the quarterback is going to be as well, because that's always a huge help for the quarterback, just being able to dump it off. And on top of that, that opens things up in the offense as well. So I think that's great in itself. And Najee Harris is going to be a dog. He's going to be a beast, and we're all expecting that. We love, and we're going to want to continue to see that, because there was a lot of inconsistencies last year, but there was just a whole lot of inconsistencies in terms of just the whole offense last year. Tight ends, there's not really much to say. I mean, Pat Freiermuth, we're expecting him to have. He did make a comment saying that he had, I think, 60 catches, if I'm not mistaken. He said he was not happy with the yards per catch. He says, he thinks at 60 catches, he should be at around 900 yards, which, at the end of the day, I like that mindset, because he's saying, hey, yeah, it's cool. I had 60 catches my rookie year, but I didn't feel like I brought as much as I could in terms of just the yards after catching, maybe being able to help out fighting for first downs. So at the end of the day, being able to help stretch the field out. Now we'll see what happens with a quarterback who has some more arm strength and who will be able to throw the ball a little bit downfield more. We'll see what kind of impact he can make and continue on with that. Moving on to the wide receiver position, obviously we're going to be looking at, obviously the big news is Diontae Johnson has not been there. That got confirmed through Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool, it seems just like from an outsider's perspective, he seems like he is continuing to, he's realizing that year 2 that he had was not acceptable. And I think just a gut feeling, and from an outsider's perspective, he seems like he has a point to prove. And that's exactly what we need to see. Because we all know that the intangibles that Chase Claypool has, we know that he can be a monster. We've seen what he can do. We've seen him have 4 touchdown games, and he can have that kind of impact on this team. And I think we need him to do that, especially going into year 3. And on top of that, he has to have himself a big year, because if you have yourself a big year, now you're going to be in the talks about a possible new contract with, especially we'll see what happens with Diontae Johnson, which we'll get to here in a second. But I think at the end of the day, we need to see some more maturity, and I think we need to continue to see the growth in Chase Claypool. And at the end of the day, we'll see what happens, but I think he could go out there and have a big year. Now, do I think he's going to go for 1,300 yards? No. I'm going to be realistic, but I would like to see him maybe close. If we could see him hit 1,000, that'd be great, but we'll see what happens. And again, with the collection of guys that you have Diontae Johnson, who has not been at OTAs, as I just mentioned. Seems like he's kind of holding out. And again, we got to remember, this is voluntary. It's not mandatory. It is voluntary. Some people like to think voluntary means mandatory. It's not the case. That is not the case at all. And we have to take into consideration, again, that he's looking for a new contract. It's kind of similar to what happened with TJ last year. Because what happens if somehow in OTA something happens, a non-contact injury, he goes and gets hurt, has to miss the year. Well, now you've really done screwed yourself, because now you're going to a free agency year coming off of an injury with no contract and really only one good year of production. We've seen growth, don't get me wrong, but he took that next step last year where he had over 100 catches and 1,100 yards or something of that nature. But we want to see that again. Can you do that again? And with a different, obviously now with whoever set quarterback's going to be, how are you going to look with that? And I think on top of that, we need that, because right now Diontae Johnson is that wide receiver one. And we're obviously, do I think he's going to truly just hold out like a Le'Veon Bell? No. I don't think that's going to be the case, because I don't think that would help him out in terms of contract. But at the end of the day, if you could go out there, you really ball out, great. Now you've earned yourself a contract. And we've seen that how the wide receiver market has gone, especially this year. If he could go out there and ball again, he's going to earn himself some money. Whether it's going to be from the Steelers or wherever else that's going to be, going out and balling out this year would be absolutely beneficial for obvious reasons. I know I'm making a very obvious point here, but, just really help get in the bag. That's exactly what it is. Just go out there, ball out, and then great. If the Steelers do a rare occurrence and give you a contract, congratulations. You've earned it. And if you don't, okay, great. Thank you for the 4 years, and hope that you do great somewhere else, unless it's in the AFC North. Go out there, ball out, get yourself a bag. That's all you can hope for at that point when it comes to Diontae Johnson. But I don't think I'm going to breathe too much into him not being here right now. Again, it is voluntary. He doesn't have to be. That's fine. Then obviously you have Calvin Austin and George Pickens. They're starting to build a repertoire. They're starting to build a chemistry now with the QBs. Seems like George Pickens and Kenny Pickett have been kind of bonding together, which is great, especially for if and when Kenny Pickett does become that QB. They have that connection. They have the chemistry. That's going to end up being very beneficial for George Pickens. And George Pickens, again, you look at it, very well could be a person that may end up possibly being the replacement for Diontae Johnson. I know we had to go out and replace James Washington and Juju Smith-Schuster, but we'll see what happens. But I think George Pickens again. Now, do I think I think a realistic, if we could see him get maybe 600-700 yards, I would be okay with that for Pickens. If we could get more out of that, that'd be phenomenal. But I just think in this situation, 6 to 8. If I could get 600 to 800 yards out of Pickens, great. It may be what one Browns player. That'd be nice too. And then Calvin Austin, we've heard some crazy talks about him, about whether he's the next Tyreek Hill or whatever. Well, we got to chill out there. But we have not heard one bad thing out of him from a lot of outsiders as well. So that's going to be exciting to see. So Deshaun Watson over... Well, let's put it this way. One guy is a class personified player, and one is a sexual predator. Let's see. Let's pick and choose there. But what's good, Hunter? Going into the offensive line here, because there was an interesting conversation that was had, and it involves Kendrick Green. Now, granted, we all understand that he did not play his natural position last year at center. And if I'm not mistaken, the quote was, "Jeff, why don't you love me anymore? You don't ever call or text me." Last time I checked, the last couple of times, I literally texted you last night, first off. If I'm not mistaken, I literally texted you last night. Let me see oh, okay. You did respond. But last time I called you, you didn't answer me. So at the end of the day, you're the one that doesn't love me. But, it is what it is. My feelings are hurt, but it's okay. But no, talking about Kendrick Green for a minute, we talked about how his confidence wasn't there. And he mentioned that. Not playing his natural position, it was just a whole messed up situation. Now, it seems like from what we had been told, he got demoted to second team. Obviously, you have Mason Cole you brought in. But I think at the end of the day, again, that's one of those things where, okay, you brought in a true natural center. All right, we'll do that for sure. We'll definitely go out to lunch or dinner at some point. But I also think at the end of the day, he should be able to go and fight for, I think, put him out in a battle, not only, for that left guard spot with him and Kevin Dotson. I think that would be a great battle for him because now you're playing a more natural position. We'll see what happens with that in terms of how dominant he can be because he can be stronger. All right, real quick, here I have a question. Do you agree that all 4 teams, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, have a legit shot at winning the North? I'm skeptical on 2. I'm skeptical on Baltimore. Actually, I'm skeptical. Well, I can't say I'm skeptical on all 4. I can make an argument on all 4. Do I think all of them have a shot? Yeah. But I think I'm skeptical about all 4. Baltimore, we all know, again, they've been a consistent organization, and we all know they just had a phenomenal draft again this year. But we don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. Is their roster that good? I don't know. There's just something, like, I'm just getting this weird vibe from Baltimore, and just, I don't know how I feel about them. Cleveland, obviously, is just the biggest question about Deshaun Watson. We don't know how long he's going to be suspended, and, that's going to take, that'll mean something depending on how long it is. Cincinnati, yeah, on paper they got better, but at the end of the day, are they going to go and have are they going to have that Super Bowl slump? Or are they going to go out and continue to ball out even more? And I think right now you would have to say maybe they're the favorites to win. Only because, again, Deshaun Watson, we don't know about that situation. And Pittsburgh, yeah, there's some question marks at quarterback. I mean, so there's skepticism about all 4. But that's just something to take into consideration. I think Baltimore, healthy now, and he was really, really good when healthy last year. Cincinnati, defending champs, and he got better. Cleveland added top 6 or 7-ish quarterback. And more, Pittsburgh has a guy who could throw more than 5 yards. That, and on top of that, you have Mike Tomlin. And I think that's something, and I guess what I'll say about Mike Tomlin, I guess you could say the same thing in a way, maybe not as much, but you could say a similar put Escalon to John Harbaugh. Because John Harbaugh, again, is one of the more respectable coaches in the NFL. We all know Mike Tomlin is a top whatever coach in the NFL. And Pittsburgh's defense, and we haven't gotten to them yet, because there is something I need to discuss when it comes to, there we go. Sorry about that. When it comes to their defense. We're going to get into that here in a little bit. But, yeah, John Harbaugh is a respectable coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been consistent. It's just a thing. Yeah, Pitt was a playoff team last year with Big Ben at QB and a totally predictable offense. But the thing is, what was crazy about that is how much of that was really the defense, because the defense was I think 22nd in the NFL in total defense. It was not that good, and it was terrible against the run. Now, obviously, they were able to down the stretch go out and win some games and win. Because you went on you started off 1-3, then you went on a nice little win streak, and then just things went up and down, whatever. We got lucky that we were able to catch Baltimore, at the end of the year when they didn't have Lamar Jackson. So there were some things that did go our way, but it was nice to see them make the playoffs because, again, I think that really helps prove another point for Mike Tomlin, but. That whole season was just up and down. But I do want to get back into the offensive line here for a minute. Again, talking about Kendrick Green. Because what we need to discuss with this is the fact that Kendrick Green, I think he has the capabilities he has value on this team. He has value in terms of now he's played a year under center, so now you could play him at that backup center. Something happens to Mason Cole, you could still bring him in. And then on top of that, now you have Kevin Dotson, who is a guy who has, he's been a starter for this team for the last few years. So you have that. So you have some interchangeable pieces, which I think is nice. Because on top of that, you have Dan Moore, who's a rookie. He was fine last year. The left guard spot, whoever it's going to be, whether it's Kevin Dotson or if it's Kendrick Green. In the center spot, you have Mason Cole or Kendrick Green, one of those two. Then you have James Daniels, who you brought in from Chicago, and then you brought in Chuks, or you re-signed Chuks Okorafor to a 3-year, $24.5 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. So you have that going for you. So now, you have your upgrade. You upgraded your offensive line. That's nice. That's great. But now, what is that going to do? How much of that is really going to impact this team? And we need that impact to be higher because we saw that the offensive line last year was not good play. And again, that doesn't help when you have a very young offensive line. But now you have a year together. They're able to bond a little bit more. We'll see what happens with that. Now, moving on to the defense. Because another player that was not at OTAs was Mr. Stephon Tuitt. And obviously, we all know last year he did not play. Now, some were raising red flags on him not being there. I'm not going to raise them just yet. We're getting there, but not yet. If he's not there at mandatory minicamp, okay, yes. Now you're gonna really have to maybe look into plan B. But if it seems like, according to Cam Hayward, he is very confident that he's going to come back. And I think he is going to be huge for this team. Because look at the impact that Stephon Tuitt has had, not only in the run game, but against the pass as well. You're bringing Tyson Alualu back, who was down week 2. So on top of that, you had 2 of your interior players out with injuries last year. So, I mean, could you really trust Isaiah Loudermilk? I mean, just, Chris Wormley? They were fine. Now they bring more value in terms of rotational pieces. But when you look at a defensive line of having, Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alualu, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, then TJ Watt coming after you, now you're talking. The only thing that's changed is from in 2020 was when you had, instead of Alex Highsmith, you had Bud Dupree. Obviously, we all know Bud Dupree now. He's had a little bit of issues in the offseason, but Alex Highsmith, who, again, we're going to have to get Mr. Sam on here at some point in the offseason. That was a wonderful interview that we did with him. And, hey, shout out to you. He also refollowed me on Twitter, so I appreciate that. But, continue to see him develop again. Another year in the NFL, another year of being able to develop and work with TJ Watt. And, again, when you have the reigning defensive player of the year and the best pass rusher in football on your team to be able to learn from, that's good. And again, you're going to see that. And again, if you have yet, go and check out the interview that we did with Mr. Sam Highsmith. And he talked about that chip on his shoulder that he always has and that tenacity that he brings. And that's what you love in Alex Highsmith. And I think, again, he could be able to go out. In fact, here, I want to take a look at this real quick. Let me look and see what was Alex Highsmith's stats last year. Alex Highsmith's stats here. He had, let's see, in 2021 he had he played in 16 games, and he had, let's see, he had He had 15 tackles for loss, that's great. You like to see that. That's almost won a game. Okay, for some reason, Pro Football Reference doesn't have it, so I guess I'll have to go to ESPN here. All right, Alex Highsmith, 6 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and he had 15 and a half tackles for loss. So that is great, and you want to see more development of that. So at the end of the day, you have that going. And that's Stephon Tuitt, who can bring a motor, and on top of that, he has a year of being rejuvenated, or he didn't play last year, so you're gonna have to knock off the rust with that. But he hasn't played in a year, so there's how much juice is left in the tank with that. Tyson Alualu, he's gonna bring value in terms of stuff in the run. So when you look at that, now you're talking, and then you bring on top of that, you have Devin Bush and Myles Jack in the mix as well at middle linebacker. Now your defense can really start to go back and look how it's been the last few years outside of last year. That's exactly what we needed. What Steeler do you think will take the biggest leap next year? Najee, second-year breakout, one of the wide receivers will pick a QB, defensive player. I think for me, the player that I think biggest leap. I think for me, I would actually like to see. I'd like to see a bigger leap, probably from someone like Trey Norwood. I'd like to see maybe a bigger leap out of him. I'd like to see what happens in his second year. So I would probably say, and especially now with Joe Hayden most likely being gone, he's going to have to take that extra role again. I think Cam Sutton is going to have, I think I would like to see him take that next step again now that he's going to have to take on a bigger role as well. But I think at the end of the day, who I think will, yeah, I'll probably have to go with Najee Harris because at the end of the day, he has that experience now, and on top of that, now you have an upgraded offensive line. And I think he's going to end up being a best friend for whoever the QB is going to be, whether, there's different motions in terms of screens or just being able to dump it off in the backfield. Biggest free agent or biggest loss in free agency for you guys. I know this doesn't really affect Pitt, but I think Juju will have a really good year in Kansas City. Well, because at the end of the day, he's in a way more pass-heavy offense, but I think he's going to bring value to them just because of his blocking as well. And I think that Mahomes is going to really like that as well, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I think for biggest free agency loss, I think I would have to probably say, I would probably have to go Juju. Probably Juju and Joe Hayden because of the leadership. Juju had the most experience in that group of wide receivers. And then on top of that, going with the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, now did Joe Hayden play the greatest last year? No. But he brings that leadership, and he brought a veteran presence to that young secondary that you had. Because you had lost Mike Hilton, so now you're having Cam Sutton, you have Trey Norwood, you have James Pierre, so you have those guys. But, having Minka back there really helped out Trey Norwood as well. But, and then on top of that, now you brought back Terrell Edmonds. So I think at the end of the day, I would probably say Juju on offense and probably Joe Hayden, only because of the leader presence, the presence for them. But yeah, and then I want to get into real quick. We're talking more about the defense. Let's get into the linebackers. Talk about Myles Jack. Let's talk about Devin Bush. Because I think and again, remember, you brought in Brian Flores, as a linebackers coach. So all three of those guys have a thing in common, and what that's in common is they all feel like they have a chip on their shoulder. Because now at the end of the day, Brian Flores is dealing with what he's dealing with in terms of the lawsuit. And on top of that, being fired from Miami. Myles Jack got cut from Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. And then on top of that, Devin Bush, he didn't get his fifth-year option picked up. And again, and I've mentioned this before, Devin Bush did not look the greatest last year, but I want to say, and I've had this thing before, Hunter, you can agree, you can vouch for me on how I said this about Odell when we were talking about the Browns for you guys. It's not about how he plays that that year after, but how's he really going to look the year after? Like what I told you after he tore his ACL in 2020, Odell did. I said, I think you're not going to see that full him into 2022. Obviously, we're not going to see that because, again, he got hurt, which absolutely sucks. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what and in terms of Devin Bush, his strength is his athleticism, being able to go from sideline to sideline. But now you have another year under your belt in terms of just being able to go back, dig your head in deep, learning getting in the film room, just going and grinding and continuing to grow and work with Brian Flores, who has a great mind for the and then on top of that, now you're going to have Brian Flores and Mike Tomlin working together along with Terrell Austin working all together. So now you have all that coming to you. And then you bring in Myles Jack, who I think is going to be a great complement to Devin Bush, because now you look at it as now you have two young athletic linebackers who should be able to fly around the field, and that's going to really help again with your defensive line as well. So I think that's where everything is coming into play. Now, it could all look good on paper and then just look completely terrible on the field. But we've seen this chemistry, or we've seen this history of just seeing the defense look great, and it all just comes together. I guess my biggest fear would be, just what's going to happen with the secondary. How is that going to look? But again, if you're able to get to the quarterback quick enough, you're going to make that secondary look a whole lot better. I'm curious how long Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be around in Kansas City. I don't know why. I just don't think he will, or hasn't been super productive for them. I think that part of that issue as well with that is only because of the fact they're a very pass-heavy team. And I think at the end of the day, that doesn't help him out as well. Now, he has the capability of being able to be in the backfield or, helping out catch the ball in the backfield. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I can understand where people are coming with that. In fact, here, let's take a look at this. Here, we'll go to Windows, and then, give me a second here. We'll take a look at this real quick. Okay, new tab. There we go. We'll go to Google, and actually we'll just, Clyde. Okay, there we go. I was having a brain fart for a second. Clyde Edwards-Helaire stats. Here we go. So, in 2021, he only played in 10 games, so that doesn't help. 119 rushes for 517 yards, 4 touchdowns. So that's not the greatest right there. 51 yards per game. That's not the greatest as well. 4.3. That's not bad. But yeah, and again, just looking at it in 2020, he played in 13 games. He started 13, but only had 181 rushes. That's not that much. But again, that just goes back to based on how little they do things in terms of the run game as well. They're just such that pass-heavy team. And I think that kind of goes similar to what happened with Buffalo. And that's why we discussed maybe they were the only team that we thought maybe could go with a running back in the first round because they just don't have that guy. But at the end of the day, they're just such a pass-heavy team. It's just, and I guess it's the, a vice versa thing that what happened, I'll say for you, Hunter, as a Browns fan. You guys were such a run-heavy team last year where and again, I understand that the passing, attack wasn't the greatest because of Baker. But, sorry, my nose itched. But at the end of the day, you wonder just, how do I want to say this? It's similar to how it is with Kansas City, but just flip-flop in terms of they're such a run-heavy team that you're not going to get that much production out of your pass game. That's just kind of similar to how it goes with them, how it is for you guys. But, yeah, I'll be very curious to see what happens with Kansas City, especially now that they lost Juju. And if I'm not mistaken, they also lost Byron Pringle. So, you have, so we'll see what happens with them. I think they're still a top 10 offensive, but they're not maybe number 2 or number 1. I think they're probably a top 7 offense still. But that's something that, that could be for a different show here. And then, yeah, just real quick, going into the secondary, there's not really much. Obviously, Joe Hayden most likely seems like he's gone. You brought back Terrell Edmonds on a 1-year deal, which was great for me. That was fine with me. But it's just a matter of how are they going to look and how much of an impact are they going to have on the defense as well, just in terms of they're not as strong. That's probably the weakest group out of the bunch. But we'll see what happens with that. But I think other than that, unless everyone else, we don't have much else to talk about. Unless you guys got something you want to discuss or talk about, I think we might be good here. So let's see here if, just check on everything, see if there's nothing that's going on. Okay, here we go. This was from Will Graves from the Associated Press in Pittsburgh. This was from earlier today. Chase Claypool says he understands people thought he was terrible last year, says last year was up and down, added he spent a lot of the offseason working on keeping his feet in deep balls to create more opportunities for yards after catch. I think that's great for him that he's able to recognize that and really continue to work on that because, again, he has the intangibles, he has the ability, the physical skill set to go out there and ball. But it's just last year he didn't work out as well, and I think, again, it's going back to the maturity. And that is a mature thing to do, is realize, hey, this is what I need to work on, and this is how I can improve myself, especially going into a big year if you are Chase Claypool. So I think I really like that coming from him. But other than that, I think we might be good here, unless there's something that you guys want to talk about for a minute or so. I think we're good. Obviously, real quick, Pirates are off tonight. They are, I think, starting up a series with the Padres this weekend. And again, well, real quick, I do want to say shout out to the Pirates for a 10-5 victory yesterday. If I'm not mistaken, that was the most runs that they've scored all year. So if that's the case, that's a great start. Having your first. Yep, that looks like, yeah, that might be the most runs they've scored all year. So I think that's a good sign there. That's a very good sign. Yeah, they scored 9 early in. Actually, that might have been a spring training. Yeah, that was just a spring training game. Yeah, they've scored 9 in a game against the Nationals. So yeah, that was the most runs that they've scored all year. So first time in the double digits. So that's great to hear, or that's great to see as well. And they're going to be starting up a series in San Diego against the Padres on a West Coast wingspan, as you're going up against the Dodgers after. So there is your quick Pirates update. And also, while we're at it here, I know Caleb's not with us here today, but would you like for us to maybe do a weekly Pirates rundown? Caleb, we talked about this. Caleb wants to do it, and so I think that might be something that we'll do. Give you guys a weekly rundown just based on what the Pirates have done all week. That week, and because obviously Caleb is very big into the Pirates. He's very that is the specialty, is the Pirates and Penguins. So obviously there's nothing to talk about with the Penguins right now until the offseason or until the free agency. But I think other than that, I think we're good here. I know we are running a couple minutes early, but it is what it is. That's all good. I do want to say thank you everyone for tuning in. If you haven't yet, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that red click that red subscribe button. We are pretty close to hitting 500. We are at 438. So we're a little under halfway to 500. So that would be really dope to hit that here pretty soon. Going to try to get you guys some more content. I know we've been slacking on there, but that really hasn't been too much to put out. But we'll try to maybe work on doing like a weekly series or something. Maybe I'll do a series where maybe on a certain day I'll react to an old Steeler game or something. Maybe we'll do something like that. But until then, I do want to say, I guess, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys did enjoy. Again, if you haven't yet, like, comment, subscribe, all that. And until then, hope you guys have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe. And I really mean that when I say stay safe, because the world right now is just absolutely bizarre. And again, real quick, I know we don't rarely talk NBA here, but what game is on tonight for the NBA for the playoffs? I'll give my quick. Okay, so it's Mavericks Warriors. Oh, it's back in Golden State. Yep, we're gonna see Golden State go back to the finals tonight. So that's my prediction. But until then, hope to see you guys in the next stream or the next video. Stay safe, everyone, and I mean that again. Peace out.